Good evening.
Excuse me.
Guys, I think there is a power cut in the server room. You can't run the programs actually. You can edit. Server is off actually. Have you done these programs, guys? I think we can start. So I'm adding so many programs after the today's class, so you can practice these programs tomorrow based on inheritance polymorphism. Any doubts in these questions? You want any explanation for these questions? Oops-based programs? Okay, so what was the question? Quickly, I'll cover these questions and we can go to the next topic. So I asked you to create vehicle class with maximum speed and mileage as the variables. And you have to read the data from the user and initialize this through the class, correct? You need to create a class vehicle and you need to initialize means obviously you need a constructor. This is a constructor, 2 parameters, and the data has to be read from the user and it has to be passed to the constructor. So vehicle class with the value a and b we're passing. So this constructor will be called automatically and these variables are initialized. And in this line, what we are doing, we are accessing the instances of the class using the object. What is the object name? Model.maxSpeed and model.mileage. It's a very basic program. Most of you have done it. but from second program onwards, I think you guys didn't do. Okay. So second question is what? You have to create a class called a circle, include methods to calculate area and perimeter, read the radius from the user using any of the constructor. Any of the constructor means you can use either default constructor or parameterized constructor. So in this case, what I've done, created the circle class. This is the constructor. So is it a parameterized constructor or the default constructor? So it is a parameterized constructor, right? Because it is accepting one parameter. We are initializing that radius parameter. Then it has its own function, circle area and circle perimeter. And using math module, we are calculating the area of circle and perimeter of the circle. 2 into math dot pi into self dot radius. So here we are creating the initializing the object, calling the methods and printing the value, right? So as you can see, we are calling the function directly from this particular line 27. So it is returning that value and it is getting stored. So in this case, we are not using object name to access this area and perimeter because already we are using the object name to call the function. Already the function is called using the object. So no need to call this area and perimeter again using the object because these are local variables. So I'm just giving you the hint so that you can complete these programs tomorrow. Only 100 people have executed. In that also many people have not got the output. If people are giving a lot of excuse, I wonder what is the problem. You can execute one program also in a day. You can easily cover these programs in a week. Basically, there is lack of interest, lack of intent, lack of motivation, right? So it's going to affect you guys only in the coming days. Okay. So anyway, it's up to the interest of the students. We have around 200 to 250 students who are executing properly regularly. So that much is a good, decent, performance compared to the overall thing, because ultimately we are expecting top 250, 300 students to have a complete grip on the Python, and that we are reaching. So those who are not focused, they will lose their upcoming activities in the training because they will feel a lot of difficulty in following up this kind of programs in future. So obviously it requires a lot of effort from the day one, which many people are not doing. Okay. So is there any problem in terms of understanding? You can interact during the session, right? And make sure you get a little bit of motivation to work. Ignoring will not help you. By end of the day, you have to study these languages in future or now. There is no option. But giving excuse that we have to write record, we have other internals, lab exams, assignments. This is like childish excuses. Many students are giving these kind of excuses, which is unacceptable in this generation, because people are learning so many things that whatever we are learning is not enough actually, including me. People are doing a lot of activities day by day. So as and when the things move on, the competition level will increase. So whatever we are doing in academics or in training is not going to be sufficient. So we have to adapt to the situation and make sure we are able to focus and learn new things, right? Along with the enjoyment, that is also important. But you can't give excuses about these writings and all. If you maintain the focus, you can definitely execute the programs, at least one program in a day. It is not a difficult thing. Some more explanation in this OOPS concept. Yeah, you can, when the, during the session, you should have interacted somewhere, right? So today, anyway, I will come to this topic once again. But your job is to make sure without fear, you can say, sir, please repeat. And you can ask anybody, whoever I've taught this classes. I'm more friendly to repeat 100 times. So please make sure that whenever you are not understanding or having any doubts, your job is to make sure that I teach the topic once again. You need not to worry. So today you tell me wherever you are not understanding, raise your hand or ask me to unmute. I'll make sure that until you understand, I'll repeat that topic. Okay. So whoever is facing these things, please make sure during the session itself, you clarify your doubts. And that's why, and being regular is also very important. Suppose if you miss one or two classes, you can't understand the topics. That is the problem with Python. All topics are connected. Okay. So what is the doubt, Soumya, you have? Can you unmute and tell me in the class? Suppose if you take this example, you need to create a class called as item. It should have following two fields, name and price of the item. And on default constructor that sets this fields. Set means what? Initialization. Okay. These terms they will use. Constructor's job is to initialize the fields. Suppose when you declare a variable, if you declare a variable, is that enough for you? Suppose you are calculating sum of array elements. Will you just declare it as it is like this? Your job is to make sure that they are initialized to 0, right? Similarly, constructor will make sure that all the items in that particular class are initialized to default value, right? That is a job of the constructor. So every class should have a constructor, which is mandatory. So what is the question here? You have to create a class called as item. And that particular class has two fields, name and price. Constructor has to set those fields. And these fields should be passed from the user. So I'm reading the name data from the user, price data from the user. At this point, you can see I am creating, what is this line? Can anyone tell me what it is called as? Creating object of the class, right? Object of the class item. So we are creating the object of the class item. The object name is also item. But while creating what we are doing, we are passing two values, name and price. So this data will go here, name and price. And the same data will be initialized for this particular class. So until you create the object, you can't initialize this parameters. That is the rule for the class and object. So parameter has to be always initialized through the object, creation of the object. Okay. So self.name, self.price equal to name and price. So you can use the same variable or different variable here. It is not mandatory. So just to keep the name as it is, we are not changing that, right? Then what is the question? A string method that returns a string containing the item name and price with the price formatted to exactly 2 decimals, right? So what is the question? You need to implement a string method. There is an inbuilt str method. I gave the example for this in the last class. So str method is automatically called whenever you use printf function in the class. These two are internally linked. Okay, print and str are internally linked. When you're calling the object of the class through the print method, internally str method will be called. In the str method, what we are doing? We are returning name and price of the item, right? As per the given formatting. So this is the implementation what I'm talking about. So str method is an inbuilt method. What is the job of str? To print some value as soon as the user uses print method along with the object. Okay. Not clear? Everyone is facing this problem. Should I be more audible or what? I think there is no problem from my side. Please check your internet connection. Okay. So this was the question. Very simple question. And one more thing I want to clarify you guys. During the lab session, many of you were getting the problem that the question name is different, and during the edit option, the question is different. So please make sure that always see what is there in the description, like in the description part. In the description part, everything will be up to date. Okay. For example, if I was doing some modification in the question, right? And later on, before I modify it, you would have accessed that question. Assume that there is some test case wrong. After creating the question, I would have updated that question next day, very next day. So what happens is, before I updated, you would have already opened that question, go to the edit mode, and you would have typed and executed that question. Correct. But the problem is here, when you see in the edit option, you will see the old question actually. But when you go to the description part, you will see the updated question. So always make sure that don't worry, whatever is there in the edit option, it doesn't matter. You can delete this also. You can delete this and run. But this is no way related to the what is there in the description, right? So many people were getting this confusion. So I'm just clarifying that. Please look into the description part, what is there in the updated question, and then re-execute the question based on the description content. Suppose if you had already opened that question. So last class that problem happened. I didn't update in the edit option, but in the description part I had updated. So people are getting confused which program, which test case I have to work. Sometimes I'll also be doing these mistakes. So I'm just clarifying that. Okay. So this is a very big question. I'll see how many executed. Hardly 40-50 people executed, right? Definitely these people will again improve in coming days. They will be able to catch up with the right things that we are doing in the training activity. So that's what I'm telling. There are people who are doing it regularly. Everyone has to do this. Okay. So what is that methodology this person is used? For example, Harshit, what you have done? Okay, Harshit is reading the data. What is the question actually? You have to create a class called as bank account. Name of the account holder, balance and interest rate should be there in the details. Between 8 to 15 as an integer value indicating percentage, right? That is the percentage rate. A constructor has to be there, which will initialize these values. A method called apply interest that takes no arguments and applies the interest to the account. It should just modify the amount field and not return anything. That means apply interest rate has to just modify and no need of returning anything. For example, the account is 1,000 rupees and interest rate is 7%. That user is entering on the screen. Then the amount variable should be changed to 1,070 plus 7% interest. So for this, you need to do these functions. Apply interest method to apply the interest to the account. How much money is now in the account after applying the interest, right? Then after that, you have to change that interest to 2% again call the apply interest, then see the updated balance. So user is entering 1%, one interest rate, some amount you will display. Then again on that new amount, you have to again give the discount of 2%. Interest rate has to be reduced to 2%, then print the updated value. So there is a series of chain action we have to do. So for example, this is the username, this is the amount that user has entered, and this is the original interest rate. Okay, and this is the updated interest rate. So what is the final amount for this amount 10,500 based on 8.5%? That is the first value. Then on this data, on this second data, again 7% you have to apply. Then this is the amount you need to get. So 2 times for calculating the interest. Okay. So here this is also correct program only, but it doesn't match totally with the given program actually. This might work in the model, but in case of other platforms, this code may not work because they want exactly the way the code has to be written, that requirement has to be matched. So here Harshit is reading the name, amount, interest rate, one interest rate to everything in the class. Then he's calculating the interest rate based on the amount. Everything is doing inside the class only. Then it's creating the bank object, then calling that particular function, that particular total variable. Okay, this is a simplified code only, but this doesn't exactly match with the code. The problem with the model is we can't test all this kind of exact codes. That's the only problem. Otherwise, I can give that kind of restriction also. But you need to create separate function as per the given condition. So make sure that you follow the question and create exactly the functions that they are asking. So this is the actually the correct code that you need to do, because this follows their code structure. They have predefined code structure. If you don't follow, it won't match with the test case. That's why my suggestion. Otherwise, there is no problem in the logic. Logic can be anything that you find it easy, you can follow. But please follow the given code requested file structure as it is. So what they're telling, bank account should have 3 variables, and you have to use constructor to initialize them, and there should be a separate function called as apply interest. So if I want to suggest Harshit, there is no function called as apply interest in his code, but his code is matching the test case, no issue. But there is no function called as apply interest. So what happens is that in the other platforms, they will match their code with your code, and they will be looking for this kind of functions. When you don't have this predefined structure function, then the test case won't match. That's the only suggestion, right? So we are creating name, amount, and interest rate, calling this constructor to initialize them, right? 3 values. In this line, we are doing, what is this line doing? Can anyone tell me? Is this mandatory for every program in the OOPS concept or not?
Creating the class.
Creating the class or creating the object?
Object.
Okay. So when you talk about OOPS programs, make sure that everything is accessed through the object creation only. That means whatever the class name is there, class name you need to use in the brackets and the parameters. Then create the object name is account. Then what we are doing, we are calling the apply interest function. We are calling the apply interest function. In the apply interest function, we are using this formula. You know that interest formula. Whatever the amount is there, we'll multiply by interest rate, divide by 100. That will give you the updated amount based on the interest. So this is doing that job. We are printing the original interest amount. Then again, we are reading one more time the interest rate, again recalling the apply interest, right? Again printing the updated value. So in this case, what is happening? This amount is updated to the new value. On that amount, we are adding one more updated interest rate. Suppose if the user is initially typed 5%, then you'll get some value. On that new value, again, say for example, we are updating 2% of the interest. So this is the question that is given, and you need to follow the given code structure. So don't just try to match modal test case. If I get out of 10, my job is over. Don't think like that. What I'm trying to make sure that you learn these kind of programs in a easy to way, easy manner, so that you get interest, because we don't have that many conditions to apply here. So it becomes easy to understand the things. But don't misuse that, okay? So many people will say input is this, means again, they will try to print that as the output. You are only losing the way of learning. Then slowly I'm increasing the question level actually. So in this case, what you need to do, you can try this one tomorrow. I'll show you the code. You can follow it later. You need to create a shopping cart class, and a list of items should be there in that. Constructor is used to. What is a constructor job here? The constructor creates an empty list of items. In this case, what should you do? Are you going to call parameterized constructor or default constructor? Can anyone tell me?
Default, sir.
Constructor has to create, yes. It has to just create empty list of items. So what does it mean? The constructor should not accept any argument. That also given the clarity here. Then you need to create method called as add that takes name and price and adds that item object with the name and price to the shopping cart. So add function is going to do the job for you, that initialization. Then total function has to make sure that what is the total cost of the items that are present in the cart. Then you need to implement one more method called as remove item that takes item name. Okay, what is the parameter you need to pass for this? Item name, and removes any items with that name from the shopping cart. And you should not return anything. Then obviously a string method, as I told in the previous example, that returns a string containing information on all the items in the shopping cart. So this has to be called as soon as I use print function in the code. Then test the output on the shopping cart as follows. So you need to implement a menu driven C program for this. 1 will create a shopping cart, 2 will add items, 3 will print the total cost, 4 will remove, and 5 will print out the cart value. Correct? A lot of functionalities you need to do in this. So see what I have done here. Item class. So this is initializing name and price. Okay. So that is two classes I am using here. Item class and shopping cart. Item class is storing name and price of the items, and string method to return that particular name and price when I'm printing in the final stage. Then shopping cart class is doing a lot of activity. In the given question, they have said, what is that? You have to create an empty list of items in the shopping cart. So what is this one? This is creating an empty list. Then there should be a method called as add, which will initialize name and price of the items. So can anyone tell me what is happening here? That is the second requirement. Now, add function should be called to initialize name and price of the item. Can anyone tell me, does this price items are local to the shopping class? Are these name and price items present in this particular class?
Object of first class.
Yeah. So what you are trying to understand here, one class can access the items of or the elements of the other class, provided the object of this particular class is created in this class, correct? So we are creating the item class object in the shopping cart object, the shopping cart class, correct? So to access this name and price of the item class, what is that we are doing inside add function? We are creating the object of item class and passing parameterized constructor with name and price, correct? Now that object is created inside shopping class, we are appending these items, right? Self dot items dot append. And what is this items? This is local to shopping cart class. So what we are trying to do, we are separating the functionality. That's why it is called as encapsulation, right? Encapsulation, at the same time abstraction, both we are achieving here. Encapsulation means binding data together. Which data? Name and price data and this class data, this list items we are binding together, though they are not directly related. And abstraction we are achieving because this is totally separate class and this is totally separate class. So we have a clear understanding what data present in which class. Okay, this simplifies our big projects when we do the abstraction. Now we are calling the append function through the items list and updating the whatever the items we have created. Then there should be a total function inside shopping cart, what we said. And in the question, what is the requirement? See, I've given clearly. Total function takes no arguments and returns the total cost of the item. So obviously, when you see that instruction no arguments means except self, nothing should be there in the total function. So we are creating a total function and it is returning sum of prices of items in the list, item list. So this particular thing you know already. Item dot price. We are calculating item dot. Why item dot price here? Can anyone tell me why we use the syntax item dot price? Item dot price for item in self dot items. This syntax you need to have a clarity. Here we use self and here we used item. Can anyone clarify these two things? Anyone? Nobody? Why item dot price here? Why?
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Item is just some normal variable, sir. We can also write some ij.
Okay.
For I in
Yeah. That I know. But why we are using item or whatever name you assume that dot price and here why self?
we are running a for loop, no, sir. Self dot items is a list, no, sir. So by using for loop, we are accessing one by one element of that list.
Okay. Here we can't use self dot price. Instead of item, can I use self dot price?
No, sir, we can't use self there because
Yeah.
like
Yes.
I is just normal variable. It's not a class variable, no, sir.
Okay. Your answer is almost correct, but I didn't get the much clarity actually. So basically, next I will make it simple for you. This price variable is present inside this class.
No, sir.
So obviously, this is not local to the shopping cart class, right? It is present somewhere in this particular class item. So obviously, to access anything that is present in the outside class, we need to use the object of that class. So what is the object name we have created here? Item. So this one is fetching the price details, wherever the memory location is, and calculating, right? Item dot price for item in self dot items, basically. So even though you are storing this data inside this local list items, the detail of this particular price variable is present in somewhere in the other class. So if I want to access the variable present in the other class, obviously, what is that rule? We need to follow the object name followed by the variable name. And which object name we are using? The object of the item class. So self indicates what? Self indicates that this particular variable is present inside the same class. Correct? So whenever you're using or seeing the term self, please understand that that particular variable is present in the same class. And when you see some other variable, some other object concatenated with other variable, you see that it is not local to the particular class. So that is the clarity I wanted to everyone to have it. Okay. Then there is a remove item function which you need to implement. Again, here we are using the self dot items. Why? Because we want to remove certain items from the list and update the list. So obviously we have to use self here. Then this is a variable name item for item in self dot items. If item dot name is not equal to name, right? So here also we need to use item dot name because See, understand. This is also not local to the shopping cart. This is present somewhere in this class, right? Obviously, I have to access using object. So if item dot name, whatever that I want to remove, this I am passing from the user. If it is not matching, I have to keep it as it is. Otherwise, if it matches, I have to remove it, right? Then this is string function. As I told you, you have to, what we are doing here, join function. Basically, we are concatenating. What is this particular function is doing? Can anyone tell me? And there are two string functions. One is in the item class and one is in the shopping cart class. Why we are having two separate functions? Both function name is same here, correct? Any idea? What is this function is doing actually? I want to print items in the cart, right? Okay, so please understand these kind of things are only important when you start doing the OOPS concepts. Okay, when to use this kind of statement. Then I asked you to implement menu driven program. Okay, so obviously how to create menu you should know. Some people ask you can we use match? You can use match also. So you have to enter choice. If choice is one, what is choice one? You need to add item to the cart. So we are reading the data, and we have created the cart object, cart dot add name and price. So see here, add function, name and price we are sending to this add function. Internally, again, this add function is sending this parameter to this class. So you see the multiple level of parameter passing is happening. Then after successfully adding, I want to print the messages item added to the cart. And if the choice is 2, I want to print total cost of the items in the cart. So I am calling cart.total, and which will return me this particular value. Correct? This value it will return me sum of all the items in the cart. If the choice is 3, I have to read an input from the user, the name of the item that I want to delete, and I have to pass that particular name to the remove item function, and this will do that job for me. Then once it is removed, I want to print the message as item removed from the cart. And if the choice is 4, I want to just print whatever the elements that are there in the cart. Print cart data, right? At this point, so what object I am printing, what object I am calling? See, so now we will understand the importance of this particular string function. Why we have written this. See how we are printing the data here. Are we printing any message here? Nothing we are doing. We are just calling the object name cart, correct? When the user enters choice 4, we are just calling the print function with the cart object. So who is doing the printing job actually? So internally, this particular function is called automatically, right? Then it is joining all the data items in that particular list and printing them one by one based on new line. Basically, I want to print some data, go to the next line, print the data, go to the next line. In that order, I want to print. So that's why I've added slash in here. And choice 5 is for break option. That's why you can able to see how the items are displayed. It is not displayed like in a linear order, one after the other. I want to print first item detail, name and amount, second item, name and amount. I want the output to be printed each on the separate line. So this concatenation with the slash n is done by string function internally. Okay, so basically it is joining the items present in the list based on the slash n. String of items for item in the self dot items. So it is joining. They are like this linear order. I want to split them and print in the separate line. That part is done by the string function. Then what about this one? When is this particular function is called? Can anyone tell me? See, at this point, I am calling cart. I'm calling the print function the cart object. That means first it will come here. And when does it go here? Are you understanding what I'm trying to say? What data is present here in the self dot items? And what data is present in the here? So here what I'm doing, I'm formatting the output in this way, red colon, for example, and rupees, I want exactly like this. And once I print this, the content has to be printed, the next content has to be printed on the new line, correct? Internally, again, this function is also called at the same time, simultaneously. Whatever the data that is present in the items based on the updated data, these two are doing the simultaneous printing work, though they are not related to each other directly. So that is the beauty of str function. So whenever you call the object with the print function, internally str function is called automatically, and it is used to do certain formatting work. Please go through this str function in once again until you practice and do things. You won't have a clarity. If anyone wants to understand why these two string functions, you can ask me if you have any doubt. So these are the kind of projects you will see in real time using OOPS concept. Everything is separated and there will be clarity in what each function is doing, what work. Any doubt in this str function? How str function works? So our main function, that is here we will be having simplified data. We are not doing any much printing work here. Even for printing, we have a formatted how I want the output. For that separately, str function will take care internally. What do you want actually? B2? Which part you didn't understand? Are you not understanding str or what is your doubt? Please mention clearly. Okay. So basically what I'm trying to say, this str function, though they are present in different classes, whenever you call this print function with the object, right? Internally, these str functions are called automatically. Here I am writing str function because if I want to print name and price of the items that I've entered, obviously these data are not with this shopping cart, right? These data are with the item class. So I have to fetch that data from the item class. So that's why I'm fetching the data from the item class using string method in this particular formatting: colon rs rupees dot format self dot name and self dot price. Once I print that, next I want to get the next data within the class item. There are multiple data that user will enter, right? And whenever I want to print the next data, before printing that, I want to go to the new line. I want to go to the new line. That means in the next line, I want to print. So this particular str is formatting the output in a such a way that every item and price data are separated by new line. In items, they are present in the linear order. In the output, I want them in the line by line order. That's the difference. So that job is done by this str function. Both are working simultaneously. Okay. So I'll be adding few more programs. I'm just making the question still. By tomorrow, you will see 4 or 5 questions which you can practice based on overriding, polymorphism, and all. I will explain those topics now. So inheritance based classes. So before explaining inheritance, before doing this question, you need to know what is inheritance actually. So please understand, to make this kind of question itself takes a lot of time. So even you might think there are a lot of things we have to do just to make proper test cases in this particular way. I have to work hours together. So it's not a one-day work. You have to make this question. I took almost more than 1 hour because I wanted the data in that particular format. That is the job that we need to understand. Okay, so it is not we can manage later on. It is not like that. We have to sit and work, then get the clarity, how to modify the things, make sure that I want to get the data in whatever the way I want to. Then only the concepts will be clear. If you just copy paste from somewhere, you won't get the understanding. You have to modify the things, put your own content into it, then understand how internally the things are working. So please follow the questions carefully. At least one program you solve in a day, more than enough. So you'll definitely improve day by day. So I think in the last class we covered, did we cover inheritance? I think we covered inheritance, we covered multiple inheritance, multi-level inheritance, method overriding, correct? Anyone have any doubt in those concepts? Okay, so let us not waste time. Those who have doubt in those inheritance concept, please meet me personally. I will clarify that. Okay, so based on inheritance concept, I've added this program, which you can do it tomorrow. So you have a bus child class that inherits from the vehicle class. Okay, there are 2 classes in your code. Bus is a child class, vehicle is a parent class. The default fare charge of any vehicle is seating capacity into 100. That is a default price. If vehicle is bus instance, we need to add an extra 10% on full fare as a maintenance charge, right? So total fare for the bus instance will become, the final amount is total fare plus 10% of the total fare. You need to override the fare method of a vehicle class in a bus class. So this condition you need to understand. You need to do the override. Overriding means this particular fare method is already there in the parent class, and your child class, that is bus class, will override this and update the total amount. So initially, what is the total amount? So total amount is what? Seating capacity into 100. So I've given the test case here. Bus name is Volvo. 30 is the seating capacity, right? 30 is the mileage, sorry. 30 is the mileage, and 35 is the seating capacity. I have given here. Enter bus name followed by mileage and seating capacity. So 35 is the mileage, 30 is the mileage, and 35 is the seating capacity. So what will be your initial fare? 30 seating capacity is 35. 35 into 100 will be your initial fare. Now your child class will override the method fare and add 10% to it. That means for the 3,500, it will add 10% interest as a maintenance charge, and overall bus fare will become 3,850. So this is the question. For this, you need to apply the concept of inheritance. Okay, concept of inheritance. So I'll just give you the clue. I was talking about super keyword in the last class. So what is the question they have given? Method overriding. You need to do overriding, correct? So I am initializing all this data in the vehicle class. So you see this, there is a fare function in the vehicle class. What is the job of this fare function? Just return seat capacity multiplied by 100. That will give you the total fare. Now there is a child class bus. You know how to create child class, right? The class name in the bracket, parent class name you need to give. Parent class name is vehicle. So given vehicle here. And we are doing the method overriding here. See, here also fare is there. Here also fare function. Both of them are exactly same. It should be along with the parameters. Now, what is this line? Can anyone tell me? This is doing method overriding. What it is doing? It is doing method overriding. Okay, this line is doing method override. So basically there is a keyword called as super keyword. Okay, in notes. So whenever you want to call parent function data first and then do the things related to the child method, you need to use a super keyword. So in this case, what is happening here is before calculating the final amount, I'm calling super with the super keyword. I'm calling fare method, which is present in the parent class. Okay. I'm calling the fare method, which is present in the parent class vehicle, then getting access of this particular data. And I'm storing that in the amount. Okay. So whatever the initial, so for example, 3,500, this data is written by whom? This data is written by parent class and it is stored in the amount. Now on this amount, I'm doing the updation. What is the updation? You need to add 10% interest. So we have this data 3,500 and that we are utilizing calculating the new amount. And that new amount we are returning from the child class. So this is the importance of inheritance. So if you concentrate carefully, what is the advantage here? Can anyone tell me which problem this particular concept is solving? Does your child class worry about what is the rule for initial pricing structure? What was the initial pricing structure? Please understand these concepts. What is your initial role in the question? Is your child class worried about what is the pricing structure? Who is actually doing the initial calculation? Who is doing the initial calculation? Calculation of pricing, right? Your vehicle class is doing or not? Initial formula is what? Self dot capacity into 100. So your child class is not at all worried about what is the capacity, how much amount it is multiplied by. So it is not worried about that. What it is doing is fetching that particular data directly from the vehicle class, correct? And on that data, it is updating with the 10% interest, correct? So internal representation is again hidden. This is also achieving the data abstraction. This part is also doing the data abstraction, showing only the necessary details, hiding the important details. Now, this particular formula is not known to the bus class, but it is able to fetch this data. How it is doing and all, it is not worried. Now, based on that updation, it is doing the new calculation. So super keyword you need to use to fetch the parent method functions or variables. Then from the school bus is the object name I have created. And this particular, at this line, I am calling child class fare method. And in this line, before calculating this, child class is calling parent class fare method. So this is the relationship between child and parent class. So if I want to fetch anything that is really present somewhere else, the inheritance makes us to do those things, correct? Understood this structure? So initially you will feel difficult in understanding. That's why I'm explaining with the code. So you get interest in executing the code. So these are the test cases. You need to enter bus name, mileage, and total seat capacity, and finally print the updated fare based on the child class method after adding 10% interest. This structure you need to follow is what my suggestion. So few more examples I have to make you understand how the super keyword works. Okay. So for example, see here there is a parent class and there is a child class. So we have used super keyword here. Using super keyword, we are calling the constructor of parent class. Okay. So if you understand this X belongs to which class? It belongs to child class, right? But child class is able to call this child. This is creation of the child class object, right? But who is initializing this data? Hello and welcome. Who is initializing this data? This data is initialized by child constructor or parent constructor. Can anyone tell me? This is the constructor, right? This is the constructor for the child class. This is the constructor for the parent class. In this code, who is initializing this hello and welcome message?
Parent class.
Child class. Any other answer? Parent class, right? So we got parent class as the one answer, right? So if you carefully observe the code, here also we have a super keyword, just like what I shown in the code in that question. Here you see, child class is not initializing anything. Instead, what it is doing is it is using super keyword to call the parent class constructor. So in fact, child class is not doing anything here. Whenever the user is sending some data through the child class object, it is calling the parent class constructor. So it is just sending the request to the, it is like, government. So first you will go and approach some clerical person. That clerical person will tell, I will submit this to higher authority, they will take care. So he is not the one who is doing the internal working. Some higher authority will process that particular application. It is like that. So people are requesting to the child class. It is not initializing anything. Internally, it is sending the request to the parent class. So that is the job of super class, super keyword. Super keyword has to be written like this only: super, opening bracket, closing bracket, dot, and whatever the method that you want to access from the parent class. Okay. So in this case, super keyword child class is not doing anything. And what is the one more advantage here in this case? Where is this print message present? Is it present inside the child class? No, right? It is present inside the parent class, and still we are able to access that through, because of the inheritance. Because child class is inheriting parent class, it has access to all these methods. You know this already. And if you observe one more example, same thing here. Here we are not sending any data. Here we are directly sending. Okay. There is an animal object, class animal, and class mammal, which inherits the properties of animal object. Now at this place, super dot init mammal, we are sending this data, right, from the mammal class directly. Whenever mammal object is created, we are sending this data, and this particular is initializing the values. Okay, this particular constructor is initializing the values. Again, this particular class is not doing anything. It is just forwarding the request. But if you, why I have given this example, can you understand which message is printing first? This message is printing first, right? And after that, this message is printing. So now you know that super keyword is forwarding this initialization of this value to the parent class, and it will print that value. Then it will come back and go to the next line, whatever it is, right? So order of the execution, I'm just making you understand. So priority will be to the super keyword, and after completion, rest of the things will follow. Okay. So coming to the next important topic. So please go through the inheritance topics, whatever I taught. If you want, I'll upload this material in the Moodle also. Polymorphism. It's also one of the most important features of object-oriented programming. So what is the definition? It is the ability of an object to take many forms. Many forms. For example, it allows us to perform the same action in many different ways. Allows us to perform same action in many different ways. For example, say I'm a batsman, right? I can bat right hand also. I can bat left hand also. So there are two forms for me. Batting is a action. Batting is a normal action that anybody has to do, but I am doing it in two different ways, right hand and left hand. That can be considered as a polymorphism. So polymorphism is ability to do different actions, same actions in different way. Correct? Same action in different way. Batting is the action. How you are doing it is a methods. So same things. Studying also, you can take an example, polymorphism. Some people will study entire questions, suppose set of 10 questions within 1 hour. Some people will take 2 hours. Some people will take full day. So studying is the action, but how much time you are doing, how much time you're taking, how much time you're spending, that is the ways we are talking about. So that is polymorphism, right? So to understand this, lot of simple examples I'm adding, then we'll go to the actual implementation. So first concentrate on this. It is a list, right? Student is a list. There is a variable. And obviously we are calculating the count of this, how many elements are there. Can anyone tell me what is the difference between these two? What is the output I'm getting? First one is giving me 3. Second one is giving me 5. Why I'm
First,
adding this question? Can anyone tell me and
first one
understand?
is the list.
First one is the list. Yeah.
Second one is the string, so that it counts the letters of the string.
Okay. So obviously it is a counting job we are doing. It is counting how many elements are there in the list, and this one, in this we are counting how many characters are there in the variable. But what is common here? What is common? What is common thing you are seeing in the code?
Length of the string. Length.
Can you see in the 5th line also we have length, and in the 6th line also we have length. Length is the same function, right? There is no separate implementation for the length inside in the compiler. The name of the function is same, but based on the data, it is behaving differently. Correct or not? In the first line, we are passing list. This is a list, right? When you pass a list, it is not counting characters inside each value. It is counting how many values are there in the list. So each one is independent values, right? So in that first case, it is returning 3, but the same length function, when you pass string to it, it is behaving differently. When you pass string to it, it is counting characters. So are we telling the length function to do like this only? So who is doing this internally? Internally, this mechanism is automatically handled by polymorphism, right? So this length is an example for polymorphism. The basic example you can say. So length is an example. Finding length of a list, finding length of an object, right, is a basic example of polymorphism. Why poly? Poly means what? Multiple. Morphism means behavior, multiple behavior. So length is behaving differently based on the parameters. Parameters are very important. So what kind of parameters you are passing to it, based on that it will behave. It is just like humans, right? If someone talks to us politely, we will also talk with them politely, right? If someone, makes us angry, we will also react angrily. But we have different faces. So even human behavior also you can consider it as a polymorphism. Our behavior is not constant always, right? It keeps on changing based on the how the situation is. So that same concept is applied in the OOPS polymorphism. So this simplifies our job. What job? I need not to create multiple functions for multiple type of data. For example, assume create separate length function for students, create separate length function for the variable college. So how many such functions you will create? So you will waste a lot of memory, right? So that's why these concepts are important. Let us take one more example. Here, this is the inbuilt function, right? Obviously, length is an inbuilt function. Now I have given here user-defined polymorphism example. What is the user-defined polymorphism? You need to know. What is the name of the function I have here is add. And this add function is obviously adding 3 variables PQR. Can anyone explain me what is happening here? Why I am calling that as a user-defined polymorphism? Why I am calling it as a user-defined polymorphism? Is it inbuilt polymorphism or user-defined polymorphism? You need to have a clarity. What is happening here? I am using the concept of default parameters concept here. We discussed about default parameter concept, right? So we are having some default parameter. What is a default parameter? R. Suppose if you don't have to pass R value, that is initialized to 0, correct? In the first line, I'm sending 6 and 23. So compiler will only accept the values of 6 and 23 in P and Q. It will ignore this R. In the second line, I am passing 3 values. Now this R will come into the life. So this 544 will go and store it in R. This is also an example of user-defined polymorphism, because the function name is same, but based on the number of parameters, it is behaving differently. But internal representation is at max, it can add 3 variables, but based on how many parameters I'm passing, based on that, it is behaving differently. If I pass 2 parameters, it will give me the sum of 2. If I pass 3 parameters, it will give me the sum of 3. But the function name is same only, right? So this is called as user-defined polymorphism. So you can also create your own polymorphism methods based on the requirements. Any doubt in this? For that, you need to understand what is this R equal to 0, why I have initialized to 0. This is called as default parameter. Whenever you want to ignore certain parameters based on the requirement, you can initialize them to 0. But if I ask you the question, can anyone tell me why it is not working in this line? Why it is not working?
Q is not initialized to 0.
Correct. So if you want to tell the compiler, even if the user sends only one value, please add it and display. Now what is the output I'm getting? Let me pass some big value here. In this case, I'm getting the whatever number I'm passing, right? Now, how many default parameters are there? 2 default parameters are there. So what does it mean? Even if I don't mention these values, it's fine. Compiler will take care of it internally, and it will only do the sum of this particular only one digit, correct? So based on the requirement, you can alter the behavior of the polymorphism. Now it will give me error, because now what is the compiler is assuming? Minimum 2 arguments are compulsorily required. Okay. Now we'll see with little bit advanced example. There are multiple varieties of doing the polymorphism. So one by one, we are learning. Polymorphism with different class methods. Okay. What do you mean by that? We are having 2 different classes, and in that classes, we have a same methods. Polymorphism with a different class method. To make this concept easier, I have taken 2 classes. For example, so there is a class called as GRIET, and there is a class called as VNR. They are 2 different classes. Okay. GRIET class has its functions CSC, IT, and MEC. Inside that, I am printing some value. Whenever I am calling CSC function, I am printing 6 sections, IT 3 sections, MEC 1 section. Then class VNR also has its own functions called as CSC, IT, and MEC. Here I am printing 7 sections, 2 sections, and there is no MEC section. What is common in these 2? Can anyone tell me? Can you consider this example as a polymorphism? What is common you are saying?
Methods.
Methods. Correct. So methods are common for, though they are 2 different classes, the method name is common. Here also it's exactly CSC, CSC, IT, MEC, and MEC. There is no change even in the character also. Then you can't call it as a polymorphism. It has to be exactly same in the both the classes. But if you observe the message, is it same or is it different? The implementation is different, right? Here I am printing something else, and here I am printing something else. Okay. So this is called as polymorphism with multiple different class methods. But what is the common thing here? Class names are common, because in every college, the departments are common only now. Only the count might be different. So I'm bringing that particular polymorphism concept in a simple way. Now let us print this data. Okay. See the code here. Which object I'm creating here? GRIET object. The name is obj1. Here I'm creating VNR object obj2. But if you see this for loop, it is making our job lot simple. Can anyone tell me what it is doing? The highlighted part. So for each function in the object 1 and object 2, for I in object 1 and object 2, okay, we are calling these functions I.csc, I.it, I.mech. But how many values I'm getting? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 output I am getting. Though I am calling this function once for each. CSC is called once, IT is called once, mech is called once. Correct? But how I am getting the output? Are you able to understand how the multiple class polymorphism can be achieved? The same method, though it is called only once, what we are trying to achieve? Through the object names 1 and object name 2, this CSC is automatically called twice. Correct? So which one is getting called first based on which object you have put in the for loop. So object 1 belongs to GRIET class. So that particular CSC function is called, this will be displayed. Then immediately object 2, it will go to the object 2 and it will print. Okay, is it printing CSC separately, IT separately and mech separately, or all together? First, it is finishing all the functions of the object 1 class. It is printing them. Then it is going to the second object. Correct? So I need not to write or call those functions multiple times because the function name is same. Function names are same. All that we need to do is mention the object names. Since this object 2 belongs to this second VNR class, internally the compiler will go to the object 2 after completing the object 1. So this is the importance of polymorphism in different classes, right? So what is it is helping us to do? It is simplifying our job. No need to repeatedly call the functions again and again because they are common for both the classes, right? Any doubt in this example? Any doubt? Okay, so we'll move to the next one. So you understood how many varieties of polymorphism we can create. This is an inbuilt polymorphism. This is user defined one. And this is in the different classes. And now comes the most important polymorphism with inheritance. In real time, generally they use this one only. Okay. Polymorphism with inheritance they use. Different class, it is not going to be that much effective. Polymorphism with inheritance is more effective. So you can understand, or anyone can explain me what is happening in this. Obviously, when you hear the term polymorphism, what concept first should strike to your mind? Can anyone tell me? When you hear the term polymorphism, what should be same? What should be same? Method names should be common in both parent class as well as child class. This should get into your mind first. Whenever you hear the term polymorphism, method name is always common or it is exactly same. Okay, so here we are having 3 classes. One is a parent class. The parent class name is bird. Then there is a sparrow and ostrich. And in the sparrow, we are calling the bird class means obviously, when you see these kind of statements, what is this one? Inheritance. So sparrow class is inheriting the properties of birds. Ostrich is also inheriting the properties of birds. And they have their own methods. What is the method name? Flight 1, flight 1, flight 1. So see what is common here. The method name is common means obviously we are achieving polymorphism. So when we call the birds object, okay. So now you are not seeing the output, right? Can you tell me the order of the execution? when I call this object, which data will be printed first? Okay, I'm creating the objects here, object of bird, object of sparrow and ostrich. Then at this point, what we are calling? We are calling the intro one method from the object of the bird class. So obviously this will be called and we are printing there are multiple types of bird. Then we are calling again flight one. This will be called, then we'll print. Many of these birds can fly, but some cannot. Okay, fine. But once we call the same intro function, this function basically in this particular line, we are calling this intro from the object of sparrow class, correct? Object of sparrow class, though it is not belong to the sparrow class, right? Intro is present in the bird class, but we are still able to access it using the sparrow class. So this is inheritance. What we are achieving here is inheritance. Okay. But what is the modification that we have done? Flight one is the same function present for both parent class as well as the child class, but the data is different. Here we are printing sparrows are the birds which can fly, but here we are printing many of the birds can fly, but some cannot. Function name is same, but the data is different. And same goes with the ostrich. Ostrich also in the same method, flight one. It is printing ostrich are the birds which cannot fly. Here we are printing it can fly, and here we are printing there are many birds which cannot fly. So you see the order of the output, correct? So this is the importance of polymorphism with inheritance. Inheritance obviously should be there, and the same function what is there in the main class should be inherited in the child class. Then only we can call it as a polymorphism with inheritance. But this we cannot call it as a polymorphism with inheritance because VNR and GRIET, they are nowhere related, but still they have common names. So here we only have polymorphism, but there is no inheritance between GRIET and VNR, correct? Okay. So there is another example. Lot of examples you will get, you have to just sit and learn. Okay. So another example of polymorphism. You know the reversed function you already might have used in many programs. I'm trying to print reversed function. Call the reversed function with this character. Great. So let's execute this. So what it is doing, it is reversing the GRIET. This is the output you are getting. But the same reversed function, I am sending three different data from the list, right? But is it reversing the characters? No, it is reversing the elements. So reverse function also is behaving based on the parameters, just like previously I explained. Here it is reversing the characters. Here it is reversing not the characters, but the position of the strings. So this will come first, Abhi will go to the next, and Akash will go in the end. So the function name is same only, na? Reversed function is name same only, but it is behaving differently based on the data. These are some of the examples that you need to understand how the polymorphism is efficient and how it is able to do different things based on the different parameters. Okay. So this is about polymorphism. Then coming to the method overloading. So polymorphism and method overloading both might seem similar when you see the definition, but there is a small difference, thin difference that you need to understand. So what is method overloading? So the process of calling the same method with different parameters is known as method overloading. Okay. So this might feel similar to the polymorphism. So you can ask me the doubt like, sir, is it similar to the polymorphism? Because there also we say that the function name should be same. But it is, in this case, it is very restricted. Polymorphism can be applied to anything, but method overloading cannot be applied to all the concepts. How I'll explain. It is strictly related to the parameter passing. Okay. When you say overload, it is strictly related with the parameter passing. That means method name can be same, but parameter has to be different. But the problem is this particular concept is not supported in Python, but still I'm teaching that because there are ways to do this. But this is a very important feature when it comes to Java. Okay. So when you learn Java, you will know the importance of method overloading. So method overloading is supported inbuilt in Java, but in Python, it is not supported inbuilt. we as a user have to modify our code so that we can achieve this concept. So what is the problem with Python is Python considers only the latest defined method, even if you overload the method. Okay. So there is no concept of Python method overloading, but we can do it. If you try to overload a method, you will get basically type error. Okay. So what is that type error? What is that overload? Everything we'll see. So see this example. There is a function called as addition, which is accepting 2 parameters. And there is another function called as addition, which is accepting 3 parameters. So what is common here? The name of the function is common. So you might think that this is polymorphism. So no, it is not a polymorphism. Can anyone tell me what is the exact difference between polymorphism and method overloading after seeing this example? In polymorphism, what is a constraint? Constraint is what? Everything should be same. Everything should be same. What do you mean by when I say everything should be same?
Parameters should be same.
Yeah, parameter should be same, return type should be same, name should be same, correct? That is polymorphism. But when it comes to method overloading, you can see in this example, method name can be same, but parameters can vary, correct? Parameters can vary. So what is the problem with Python method overloading I was talking? So when I try to execute this code, you can see we are getting some error message. What is error message? Missing one positional argument. Okay. Suppose if I comment line this one, I'm getting the output as 15. Or if I comment line this one and re-enable this, in this case also I'm getting the error because at least one extra argument is obviously required as per the given code. So there is a conflict between the addition function. So this is not allowed in the Python. So you can't have the two function with the different parameters and same name, and they're the different implementation. But this we overcome in the previous example I showed somewhere right here. Yeah, here we have overcome that through the user defined polymorphism. This is the one way. Okay. So how to overcome this kind of problem? So I already shown that to overcome the above problem, different way of implementation is required. So function with the 2 default parameters. So can you consider this method overloading? Can you consider this method overloading as user defined polymorphism? Can you call method overloading as user defined polymorphism? Yeah. So you can understand that method overloading is nothing but user defined polymorphism. That's why people get confused between polymorphism and overloading. They think both of them are similar. So method overloading is an alternative name for user defined polymorphism, you can say. So if you see this example, you'll get much more clarity. So we have a shape class with the area method and here 2 parameters. Now based on the value of b, I'm trying to do something here. So I'm creating the object of shape class, calling the area method, square dot area, right? How many parameters I'm passing here? 1 parameter. If b is greater than 0, what we'll do, we'll go to the else part. Suppose if b is equal to 0, we'll go to the rectangle part, right? Based on the requirement, we are modifying the behavior of the method to achieve the method overloading. In the second object, here rectangle object is calling the same area function, but with the 2 parameters. So in this case, 3 is passed to b, and now b is greater than 3. Now the control will go to the else part, and we are finding the area of square, correct? So area of square we are doing here, area of rectangle we are doing here. But how? Using the same method. That's why this can be considered as a method overloading. Method overloading. We are changing the behavior of the method based on our requirement. So to summarize this, what you can say, method overloading is nothing but user defined polymorphism. You can think like that. Method overload is nothing but user defined polymorphism. Strictly user defined polymorphism. Okay. I don't know what I'm doing here. Okay, yeah. This also I have taken into consideration just to make sure how you understand the inbuilt polymorphism. This is also method overloading, or you can say user defined polymorphism, because at this point I'm calling range function with a single value. Here I'm calling the range function with 3 values. So what does it mean? The method name is same. Here it is accepting 1 parameter. Here it is accepting 3 parameters. So if you don't pass 2 more values, it will automatically initialize them to 0 and print the values. So for I in range 5, it is printing that particular value. Here what we are doing, we are taking the step of 2 up to 12, starting from 2 number. We are printing the values up to 10, excluding that last value, correct? So the range function is common for both the codes, but it is behaving differently. Just to make sure that you understand the concept, I have taken this example. So range with the 1 parameter, range with the 3 parameters. This is also method overloading, you can understand. Okay, so quickly you'll see the operator overloading, and remaining you'll see in the tomorrow's session. So what is operator overloading? So the name itself says that you are changing the behavior of operator. What type of operators you have learned till now? Arithmetic operators, assignment operators, right? Logical operators, different type of operators. So when you say overloading, obviously what you are trying to understand is that you are trying to change the behavior of these operators, how plus, minus, star works, right? Operator overloading means changing the default behavior of an operator depending on the operands that we use, correct? What do you mean by operands? Values. Suppose if I add 1 plus 2, I'll get output as 3. Same thing if I do a plus b, what is output I'll get? If I add a plus b, does it do anything? It might just do the concatenation of a and b, right? It is not adding a value and b value until and unless you provide a and b value. So this is, in this case, it is doing the concatenation. In this case, it is doing the sum, but the operator name is same, right? This we already know. So we can use the same or operator for multiple purpose depending on the operands. To see that example, you see the, yeah, correct. So here I am getting the output as 300. Here I am getting GRIET Python. Operator name is same, but it is behaving differently. This concept can be considered as operator overloading. But when it comes to OOPS concept, this cannot be, this you can't work, make it on object. This can't work on object, correct? To understand that, you see this example. So we have a class called as book, which has a method variable called as pages. We are creating 2 objects of the class book, b1 equal to book, and first time we are passing 400, next time we are passing 300. In this line, what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to add 2 objects, b1 and b2. So you might think that b1 and b2 is 400 and 300. We will get the answer as 700, correct? This cannot be possible when it comes to objects. So unsupported operand types for plus, this is the error you will get. So how to make this job easier using the concept of operator overloading is the question. Okay. Now see, the same code is modified a little bit. Please observe this particular part. This is an inbuilt function. Okay. They are also called as magic methods. Please write down this and go through, explore in Google what are the different type of magic methods. What I'm showing you is only one magic method. What is the name of the magic method is add. Okay. So here we are trying to overload plus operator with inbuilt method called as add, also called as magic method. So we are creating the object of book B1 and B2, 400 and 300. So what is happening internally is whenever you are trying to add two objects here, I'm trying to add B1 plus B2. Based on the operator, the corresponding magic method will be called. So what is the magic method that is corresponding to the plus is add method. Okay. So internally add method is called. And in this add method, what we are doing, we are calling the pages instance self dot pages plus other dot pages. So you can ask me, sir, what is this self and other? This magic method is accepting two parameters, right? One is self and one is other. So basically what it is doing is it is trying to fetch the object one B1's data from the self and another object data from B2. So we are trying to change the internal behavior of the plus operator. So this will give me 400 plus 300 and this data will be returned here. Correct. So now I'm getting the output as 700. So which is not directly possible when you try to add two objects like this. This is not possible only when we are working with the objects. So when you want to send two object values and still want to perform the arithmetic operation like this, you can modify the behavior of inbuilt operator, that is plus operator. So this is user defined code. That's why the plus is associated with this add. Okay. So similarly, there are a lot of magic methods. Please explore in, I will give this hint how to learn this magic methods in Python. Go to anyone website. There are a lot of magic methods. Yeah. Can you see? Is there any just one magic method? Can I finish explaining all this? Impossible. These are all magic methods that you have. ABS, add, and, bool, seal, float, right? You can alter the behavior of this inbuilt operators is what I'm trying to say. Suppose, for example, take mod. Mod is for what? Finding the remainder. Mul is for multiplication. This is for negative number. This is for random number. Right shift. And this is for power, correct? So a lot of magic methods are there. You need to make sure that you learn at least few of them. So what I've explained here is just one method, that is plus magic method. Not loading. So there is a directory of the magic methods. These are all the directory of the magic methods that you are having in Python. So you have to practice at least few magic methods every day, one by one. So whenever you want to have those kind of requirements, you can use them. So why we use magic method in this case, I hope you understood, because we wanted to add the parameters of two objects passed separately and want to do expression like this B1 plus B2, which was not available previously. Now we modified the plus internal representation using the magic method. So whenever plus is used, call the add method and do this. Obviously here it is behaving like an arithmetic operator because pages is not an object, right? Pages are the normal variables. We are initializing them as the normal variables. So here it won't give us any error. Okay. So similarly, what we are doing here, can anyone tell me? How many variables we are adding here? So this is very helpful when we want to simplify our operations. Here we are trying to add two complex numbers, right? Object 1 and object 2. First complex number 1, 2. Second complex number 3, 4. And I want to do complex number addition O1 plus O2. So compiler don't know what is O1 plus O2. So we are implementing this magic method add. We are calling self.x plus u.x, correct? And self.y plus u.y. because this U is for another object. Okay, so this is about operator overloading. A lot of topics are still there. In tomorrow's class, we will be learning about very interesting. Tomorrow also we have session. Please understand. I'll explain for a few more topics related to operator overloading and random function, very important function. Then there is generate, iterator concepts. So a lot of examples I will be showing. Make sure you are executing these problems. I'll try to upload this materials so you have it. You can practice it later on. Any doubts? You can contact me personally. Okay, see you tomorrow's class.